Hey, I have some very exciting news for Sega Dreamcast fans. We are getting a bunch of AAA quality arcade ports from the Atomiswave Arcade platform, care of Megavolt 85. And if you didn't know, the Atomiswave is a relatively lesser known arcade platform. Many of us see it as a sort of spiritual successor to the Neo Geo MVS because it was a collaboration between Sammy, SNK, and Sega. And really interestingly, it shares a lot of hardware with the Dreamcast. In fact, it basically is a Dreamcast for all intents and purposes, with a few little changes under the hood here and there. But it's more similar than the Sega Naomi or Naomi 2, which you've probably heard of, which is a type of kind of souped up Dreamcast hardware. But unlike the Naomi, the Atomiswave has been largely overlooked because it's pretty rare and it really failed to break into arcades like the Naomi did. If you want more details on the Atomiswave, I have a link to the Dreamcast Junkyard's write-up of it, which covers a lot of its history and technical details. But a lot of Atomiswave games have been ported to the Sega Naomi by the community already, but this is the first time that one has emerged for the Sega Dreamcast, and this is a big deal. Actually, the Sega Naomi ports are great, and they're going to be relatively the same as this because it's basically native Dreamcast code on the Atomiswave that just needs a lot of work to get it running, and that's what Megavolt 85 is up to over at the Dreamcast Talk forum. But the difference between playing, for example, the first game that was ported is Metal Slug 6, and I have some great footage of it, care of Remo Williams. The difference between playing Metal Slug 6 on the Naomi port versus the Dreamcast port is that the Naomi port, because of the way that it deals with the controllers, has about 3 frames extra input lag compared to the Sega Dreamcast, where it's running the Dreamcast controls natively, just like in Atomiswave. And Megavolt has released GDI of Metal Slug 6, and Metal Slug 6 is one of those games that's it's so rare that most even hardcore Metal Slug fans probably aren't playing it very often on original hardware, unless they happen to own an Atomiswave, which most of them don't. There have been a few home ports of it, but they aren't so great. This is a fantastic Metal Slug, though, and the Atomiswave runs 480p native, and so does the port. So it's running at 480p VGA here on the Dreamcast. It also works via RGB, and I think you get 480i if you run it that way. But getting this on the Dreamcast is the equivalent of getting a brand new Metal Slug game running on native hardware. This is not emulation. This is a port, a conversion, whatever you want to call it. It's native code running from the Atomiswave on the Dreamcast, converted by Megavolt. So this is extremely exciting. And there were some questions whether this is going to apply to other Atomiswave games early on. But earlier today, Megavolt also released King of Fighters 11, ported from the Atomiswave to the Dreamcast, with all of the same cool features. In the Metal Slug 6 port, you can access the debug menu, and you can play around with the options. He's posted a lot of information on how to remap buttons. You can run it in widescreen, which is pretty interesting, along with a lot of other cool stuff. And he even has a CDI version of it going now, so you can play it from disc, although that's going to be tweaked probably with time. And of course, the Atomiswave is very similar, but it's not a one-to-one Dreamcast clone, so we should really celebrate these games. This is very exciting stuff. This is more exciting than getting some new homebrew, some new indie game. This is great new arcade hardware that you're going to be able to experience on your Dreamcasts. And Megavolt is releasing it for free, so I just think this is probably the most exciting thing to happen on the Dreamcast since the mode was released earlier this year. And speaking of which, this runs on the Terra Onion mode. It also runs on the GDEMU, although that's kind of hit or miss, and you do need to edit the GDEMU INI file, or there's a hack version of it that you can try. Some people are saying that it also works on the USB GD-ROM, and Megavolt released a special version of it for the Dreamshell, which runs on hard drives, not SD cards, so that's going to be limited to just the hard drive version of Dreamcell. So how about that? A new Dreamcast game for you this week that nobody saw coming. Some people have kind of pondered if this would be possible through the years, but nobody has really pulled it off, so this is really cool. There's a lot of really awesome Atomiswave games. The one I'm most excited for is the one that a lot of people are, a game called Dolphin Blue, which is kind of like a Metal Slug with dolphins type game. There's more to it than that. It's a beautifully polished game with really impressive graphics. Very hard to find a playable copy of that on real hardware anywhere out there in arcades. So this is going to be really exciting. We'll see what he's going to release next, and I'll link to the forum and to my article where you can get all the details on this. But a huge thank you and round of applause for Megavolt for bringing us some AAA Dreamcast in 2020. Who would have thought? So thanks for joining, and a huge thank you to my patrons who make this all possible. Patrons at any level get an instant invite to the SmokeMonster Elite Discord where we can chat about this stuff in more detail. But thanks again, and I'll catch you guys next time.